This is a download from BFM 89.9, the business station.
Last week, we spoke about security threats that have hit hard in the year 2011. And today, we're looking into our crystal ball to see what will be knocking on our firewalls in the year 2012. Here with me today is Krishna Rajagopal, CEO of AKATI Consulting. Now, Krishna, 2011 was the year of DDoS attacks. Is 2012 going to be any different?
Well, with all the crazy 2011 security breaches, exploits, notorious hacks... what can we expect from 2012, Jeff? Nothing different. DDoS will still be there as a form of protest mechanism. It's going to be a new style of protesting. But I would like to call 2012 as the year of mobile and social network attacks with a focus on identity theft. I know that's a bit too long.
Antiviruses always seems to be, step behind attacks of viruses, Trojan, malwares, etc., etc. Why is this so? Is it because it's like a chicken and egg situation?
Well, not really, Jeff. When a doctor actually wants to create a vaccine for a real world virus, what happens is he usually starts by obtaining a live sample of the virus. Right, and then this live sample is then studied. Then he tries to understand how it replicates and tries to find its weaknesses, and then he builds a vaccine so that he can prevent it from spreading. Now, the same standard of operation applies in the world of computer viruses as well. And when a new virus is discovered in the wild, these antivirus coders must first get a copy of the actual virus, right? And then what happens is they break it down and try to find out how it works. And then they create what we call as a signature, right? I don't know if you remember this story about a dumb guard and a yellow criminal. Imagine I'm a dumb guard and I'm sitting down here, and someone's told me that a criminal would come in and he would be wearing a yellow jacket, a yellow pants, and a yellow tie. And the criminal comes in, removes his jacket, and changes it to a green jacket. Now I come in and look at him and say, yellow tie, yellow pants. Oh, green jacket. Not a criminal. Go ahead. So the world of antiviruses are still predominantly working on signatures. And the hackers or the criminals know how these works. So they find ways to work around it. And that's why we'd say that the antiviruses are always one step behind these hackers, simply because of the fact that you need to be a reactive system rather than a proactive system in the current scene of the antiviruses.
You mentioned just now, social media and mobile. We'll talk about social media now. As we know, it was always a target. Would we see improvements in security issues by like Facebook or other social media sites?
Most definitely. See, Jeff, Facebook sort of has taken the lead in this arena. It has spent massively on what we call as a Facebook immune system. FIS, and it's sort of a complex set of algorithms that monitors every photo that's posted on the network, every status update, every click that is made by every one of its 800 million users. So that's sort of 25 billion read and writes with a 650,000 actions a second.
Wow.
And Facebook is currently doing that. It's just that when this information is public, the hackers also know it. So the recent threat that we mentioned last week that rendered the FIS unusable would see more of these kinds of attacks unless these social networking sites beef their systems up and be ahead of the attackers rather than reactive.
Now, cloud computing is going huge in 2012. Now, should we be wary of security issues that it will face? Well,
I would say cloud computing at this point in time is synonymous with security risks. Any smart customer is going to ask tough questions. And they need to consider getting a penetration test or a security assessment done by a neutral party before committing to any vendor, right? The recent downtime of Amazon's cloud sort of made a lot of organizations think about security implications again. And it's a serious issue that we need to think of.
Right. What are some of the threats that you foresee in cloud computing besides the usual hacking and viruses or even downtime per se?
Well, to start off with, I would say a lot of people overlook this privileged user access area. See, when your data, your sensitive data is being processed outside the enterprise, that brings out a lot of risks. Yeah, because of the fact that you simply do not know the level of security controls that are placed in your cloud vendor. Yeah, that's one issue. So you need to ask your cloud providers to supply specific information on their hiring process, on their privileged users, right? And you need to have control over that. Yeah. Number two is the location of the data itself. A lot of people overlook that. Yeah, when you use cloud, you probably won't even know where your data is stored. Yeah, you might not even know which country it's there. Right? Now, try to stipulate this if it's possible in your contractual agreement, so at least you know where it is. Yeah, and then of course, try to plan a site visit, right, to actually see the physical sites. And another area that people overlook is segregation of data. Now, in a typical cloud provider, data in the cloud is typically in a shared environment. Yeah, alongside with your data is alongside with data from other customers, and obviously most vendors would use a common alibi and say it's encryption, but that's not a cure-all. Yeah, what you really need to do is find out what is exactly done to segregate data that's actually at rest. Because that means if another customer that is using the same cloud gets attacked, could it be possible that you are also a victim of the same attack? Yeah, and then of course, last two things that you probably need to think of is disaster recovery, business continuity. Think about that as well. This is always a serious issue. I can't stress the importance of this, but of course the area is so huge, it can be another episode on its own. Yeah? And then of course, the forensic investigation support. Most cloud vendors do not have proper logging systems, right? And that happens, what happens is these cloud services become very difficult to investigate. And because the data is spread across many places, logs are not there often. And when that happens, again, if you cannot get a contractual commitment to support specific forms of investigation, along with some sort of proof that the vendor has actually done this before, then your best assumption to say is that investigation and discovery requests will be impossible in the event of an incident.
And that's very probably you will come in. I'm speaking to Krishna Rajagopal, CEO of AKATI Consulting, and in just a moment we'll be talking about your smartphone. Yes, you and your smartphone. Stay tuned, BFM 89.9. Jeff Sandhu here, and with me today is Krishna Rajagopal, CEO of AKATI Consulting. Now we're looking into our crystal ball here today to predict what are the security threats for the year 2012. Now, Krishna, let's talk about mobile. You mentioned earlier just now, mobile could be the big thing in 2012 in the other way. All smartphones these days, they have more information than some of our laptops.
Very true.
Are smartphones users at risk?
Well, Jeff, having seen into my crystal ball, smartphone users and tablet users are at risk. Having said that again, let me take you back into the past. In the past, of course, cyber criminals were interested in a credit card, right? I think they've had enough. I think they probably have enough cards that they don't know what to do with it anymore, In 2012, what's going to happen is that your social media identity, that's more valuable to cyber criminals than your credit cards itself, right? These bad guys are going to actively buy and sell social media credentials in forums. And what better way to do this with all this cloud computing and social networks coming into play, right? Now, this new form of attack is what we call as a blended attack method. This is a new way. What happens is these attackers will now go through your social media friends as the first point of attack. And then they would, of course, this social media, the easiest point of attack would be through your mobile device, right? We have seen that Facebook, for example, on a mobile device is less secure than a browser. We have seen that. So they would get into your mobile phones, get into your Facebook, go through your list of friends, make use of the trust that your friends have against you, and then carry out their next form of attack. Right? We've seen a particular attack, several attacks this year especially, where they've used a compromised social network account and they use the chat in that account, pretending to be the user itself, to get to the right so-called victim in your list of friends, and then use that for their fraudulent activity or for their attacks.
Because obviously from Facebook or other social media sites, you will know who is your relative or your brother, your sister, your mother, your father.
And that's true. And people tend to also post things like personal details as well on Facebook. So it's easy to predict. I could say that, I can't wait to go to Japan next week, right? And then next week comes along the way, and if I just log off the actual user from Facebook and I go in and pretend to be that user and say, look, John, I am stuck in Japan. I don't know what to do. I've been robbed. And that's the common thing that we've seen in 2011. I think that's going to continue. The only thing is that the first point of attack is going to be the smartphone.
So what can smartphone users do then?
Well, thousands of mobile device attacks are coming to a smartphone or a tablet near you in 2012. And some of the things to look out for: the London Olympics, US presidential elections, the Mayan calendar, all these apocalyptic predictions are going to be leading to a lot of opportunities by these criminals. The reality, of course, is that it's no longer a fiction, right? So, in a nutshell, simple: password protect your phone, your tablet, anything. Do not open any email if you do not know the sender. Even if it's from a business all right? Go to the browser, go to their website directly, right? Don't answer any text messages asking for personal information, be it bank or anyone else. This is a new trend. We call it smishing, right? And it's phishing over SMS. And then never, ever, ever click on links, right? And delete spam as you can. Don't answer it ever. Right? Even if Britney Spears is asking you out on a date, don't even answer that. And turn off all these Bluetooth. And every phone has got a security guideline by the vendor. Follow that. Doesn't take you.
And also, one of the things that I always tell BFM employees here is that if you receive an email that you find it suspicious, just do a Google search on it.
Exactly. And then you probably find it.
Yeah, you will know whether this is legit or this is this is a virus or malware. Just do a simple Google search. So antiviruses are all going to be updating their products very soon. If not, they've already updated. Now, is there a need to buy like a 2012 product? If I have something that has only been like about a year old.
Well, if you have an active subscription, then you're fine, right? But if not, go out and get it. As long as you have a valid subscription, I think you don't need to get another one.
And it's all about the signatures, right?
Yes,
that you need. So, what are some of the basic steps that we users need to take in order to stay away from any sort of attacks? Since we cannot stop telling people to be careful what you click. So,
true.
What are some of the simplest basic steps that we can share here?
Well, I call this Britney's 8 steps to security.
I'm sure that will get a lot of people tuning in.
Now, first of all, of course, use a firewall. Keep the threats out. Keep them hackers out as well. Then install an antivirus software. Right? Keep it updated. The signatures have to be updated. Get the latest software updates, be it your OS or your software. Now, if someone's creating an update or a patch, there's a reason for it. Most of the time, it's security related. So the idea is to keep your tools sharp. And then, of course, stop spyware. So have an anti-spyware. If you're on Windows. And then, of course, make regular backups. You never know when it's going to happen. Protect your data from disaster. And then, of course, if you're on a wireless network, make sure that understand that wireless networks are vulnerable. Protect it. Find the right ways to protect it. There are all documents for it. Use a complicated password. Doesn't mean that you're on WPA2. You could use a password
1234.
1234. You can't do that. And stop unwanted emails. So try to have an anti-spam. Do not answer spams. Delete the spams directly. And then, of course, make sure that you make efforts to browse the internet safely. Right? Make your browser safe. Turn on the browsing feature, safe browsing feature. Avoid dodgy websites. And of course, as what you said, if you have any suspicion, Google it. It's always there. And of course, in the case of Britney, stay away from paparazzis.
Now, one of the things I think you interestingly mentioned is backups. I think we don't do enough of backups.
Oh yes, that's true.
One of my friend recently had that and the smartphone crashed, installed some application and had no backup whatsoever. Lost all the contacts, lost all the emails.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
do your backups regularly. Once a week, it's good enough.
It's good enough. And of course, if you're using any form of cloud service, then it's even better because it's always synced.
Yeah.
And even for your laptops and your PCs, back it up.
Yeah. All right. So I've been speaking to Krishna Rajagopal, CEO of AKATI Consulting, about security threats in the year 2012, BFM 89.9.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To find more great interviews, go to bfm.my or find us on iTunes. BFM 89.9, the business station.